Hello, I'm Colin Green, and you are listening to Spike Pit. Hello there, folks. I'm back again, delving into the archives. It's me, old Spike Pit. Hope this episode finds you well. It's originally episode 40, and some of these deep cuts are quite painful for me to listen to. There's some funny pauses and some up and down audio, and well, I like to think I've improved a bit over the years, like a fine wine or perhaps a whiskey or something like that, but that's for you to decide. However, to bring things up to date a little bit more, we got a call in from an old buddy of mine. We haven't heard from him in a good while. Really nice to hear once again from Rich Fraser, and he's calling in reference to the episode I re-released recently, the Goliath hunting party. And yeah, I'm talking about group play, and that at the time I recorded that episode, I was exploring ideas of getting my son into the hobby, and we were doing some solo gaming. But now Problem Solved is a part of the group, and you can hear him playing in the Curse of Strahd episode. So the problem eventually sorted itself out in that way. Enjoy. Catch up with you later.
Hey Colin, it's Rich. So I've got a couple suggestions for your multiple party members thing. So I'm not sure what the issue is you're trying to solve, but the Essentials box set came with something called sidekicks, and they were basically like really toned down characters. And you could just give your son a handful of these characters and say, okay, you run with these guys. And by rolling a handful of d20s with matching damage dice, it's pretty easy to figure out what's going on. My second suggestion was going to be basically what Scarlet Heroes boils down to is don't worry about extra guys. Just have your boy do a hit die of damage every time he does 1 point of damage. So if he's doing 3 points, then he does 3 hit points. All right, man. Anchor's beeping at me. Have a good one.
Hey Colin, Cody M here, just calling in on your last episode. I really like your ideas about what you were talking about for the magic users being more interactive with their environment. You could probably do something like DCC does and have a table for each of your spells that you consult whenever you cast a spell. That way you get some unique effect tied to the environment or surroundings. So anyway, bud, I'm really enjoying the show. Just keep up the good work. Catch you later.
Thanks for calling in, Cody the Mysterious. A regular caller nowadays. I always look forward to hearing what Cody's got to say, and I always like hearing what he's got to say on Audio Dungeon. He's a moderator over there, and he keeps his ear to the ground and his finger on the pulse. So, yeah, cheers for that, Cody. And you are responsible for causing me to get out my DCC core book again. A couple of days back now at the weekend I was going through it, and yeah man, so many games, so little time. I'm going to have to pencil a DCC thing in somewhere along the line. I've got a load of the adventures. It's one of the things I called into Jason Hobbs about back when all I did was call-ins, and yeah, I've got all these adventures, and I'm going to start delving into them again. I know that DCC is actually at heart quite a simple system, but all the charts and tables just scares me a little bit. But more from a practical point of view, actually. I've only got one copy. My players, mostly my family, so it sort of begrudge having to buy multiple copies just to give out to my kids. Yeah, so that's a little bit of a stumbling block, but I'll get over it. I'll figure something out and get it to the table. But yeah, the magic in that does look to be really fun. And there are a couple of other magic books knocking about. Gavin Norman delves into different types of magic users, and Lost Pages, Paolo Greco. He's got some books out there. I don't know if he writes them or if he just sort of publishes them. But I've got a few magical things knocking around. And plus, like in the last episode, I talked about my ideas about this, bringing the environment into the game a little bit more. And magic's one way of doing that. But I'll talk about that a little bit more later.
Hey Colin, it's Robert from DM Dad. I really enjoyed your little walkthrough of the monster A to Z. That was it was a good demo of how it works. Sounds like something I'm gonna have to look into myself. I really like random monster generation and stuff like that. I was thinking about the funny dice, because I did just recently break down and buy a set of like the funny dice that you use for Dungeon Crawl Classics, with the D14s and the stuff like that. There's a lot of like dice apps though that have non-standard dice as well, like apps for your phone and web apps and stuff. There are even some that you can just put D and whatever number you want, and it will turn that into a dice roll. So for these like random things, when you're planning in advance, if you have access to your phone or a computer, you can simulate the funny dice.
Yeah, so of course, funny dice, they are, funnily enough, we're just talking about DCC and their trademark of DCC with the dice chain that appears in the rules. And thanks for calling in, Robert. Robert's the DM Dad, as no doubt listeners will be aware. I have used Purple Sorcerer as a resource on my phone. I've got an Android app on there, and it does some other stuff. I haven't looked at it for ages, but it does quite a few little things. But the actual dice rolling part of it, my sons, they love it, but I'm a bit too old school, I must say, and I miss the actual dice. And I haven't actually managed. I've been to a few conventions, and I've always got my eye out for the funny dice, and I don't seem to see them. And Goodman Games produce them for DCC, and I know Zochi does them, but it all seems quite American centric sort of distribution, and the UK outlets, maybe I'm missing something, but I don't think they stock them. But in fairness, it's a little while since I've had a look because I kind of moved on. But it's something I'm gonna revisit, because I have tried the die rollers, and whilst they work, and I don't mind using them when I'm behind the scenes, maybe doing a little bit of DM prep and that's fine. But when I'm at the table, I've normally got my phone doing something else, quite often a bit of music or something like that. So yeah, it don't work out too well. But thanks for the call in, and probably that'll work fine for some folks. So it's just that I'm pretty old school when it comes to that. Right, now, talking of using the phone at the table, one thing that leads me into my main topic, as they say. So, Arfed is currently in the hot seat for DMing, but he's been away. So, our game, which we usually play on a Monday, but it's now looking like it's going to be a Tuesday night thing. We had no DM, so I stepped up to the mic with a one-shot. I've got Stay Frosty that I've been wanting to play. As you know, if you heard my last episode, I've got the Monster Alphabet. I've been thinking about monsters and things like that, so I've put together a scenario, played it last night, and really like the system. It's sort of trying to recapture the feel of something like Aliens, but I really enjoyed The Martian, and that has stuck in my mind. Some of the imagery of that, this growing stuff and one thing and another. And I don't always know where my inspiration comes from. If I'm honest, it's all just like a primordial soup of nonsense that sloshes around in my cranium. So I pulled this idea out of the hat that there's a research facility. I mentioned this briefly. There's a research facility on this kind of water-covered moon, and the players in Stay Frosty are, well, they don't need to be, but they are essentially a military squad, a military squad of Marines. The character generation is straightforward. It's 3d6 down a line. They've got 4 stats. They've got brain, brawns, dexterity, and willpower. Nice. I like that. It works out well in play. The little twist on the rules is that during generation, you want to roll as low as you can. So the best roll is 3 ones. Needless to say, my youngest son got that in dexterity, which means he is the sharpest of sharpshooters, and he is virtually impossible to hit. Because in this game, you are hit by the enemy if they roll under your dexterity on a d20. So you can imagine rolling under 3 on a d20 is pretty hard. However, if a monster gets an enemy gets higher hit dice, there's a kind of powerful opponent rule that kicks in. So every hit dice above the level of the target reduces or increases the chance of the target being hit. This the way the stats are worked out means you've got the potential for player facing rules. DM doesn't need to roll anything unless he wants to. There's some interesting stuff in there as well. So we've got that. So you've got low stats. Your armor reduces damage, which I like. What else is there in character generation? It's all random stuff. Like you can choose your basically your MOS, which is your job in the military. So there's like an armor guy who gets the transport and a toolkit. There's an engineer. There's a cyber guy, kind of a hacker and tech guy. There's a medical guy. There's special operations. And then there's the infantry grunt sort of guy. They've all got like a little bit of flavour, a little bump or boost, which is a simple kind of 1 line or maybe 2 lines rules. It's normally like they get... so you've got advantage and disadvantage. So they've got a little bump for their speciality, and they maybe get a slightly different equipment fit out that gives them a little boost, and it's relevant to their field of operations. So the medic, he gets advantage on the healing, and my interpretation of that was he gets a med pack, and when you use a med pack, you get a D10 hit points back. So if you're a medical officer or medical guy, you can roll that with advantage. So you're getting a D10 hit points back with advantage. Anybody who don't know what advantage is, that is you roll the 2d10 and you take the highest. A disadvantage, you roll 2 dice, take the lowest. You're forced to take the lowest. So that's in there, and that's one of the best things that come out of 5e to my mind. So I was happy to see that. The other thing I was happy to see, this game cites influences in the Black Hack. One of the apparent ones to me was the usage die. So there we go. We've got various equipment. Ammunition for your guns is dealt with. All your equipment is dealt with. If it's consumable, it's dealt with on the usage die. So if you've got an infantry rifle, you've got ammo, D8. At the end of a combat, you roll your usage die. If you roll a 1 or a 2, you drop down from a D8 down to a D6. That is cool as far as I'm concerned. In play, I can't comment. I'll come to that later. But fine in theory, good, cool beans. You've also got equipment slots. So encumbrance is dealt with in slots, which I'm also a big fan of. I like the simplicity of it. It's related to your brawn score. So you take 21 as a number, you deduct your brawn from it, and that is how many slots you've got. So once again, that nice and simple, quite easy to remember. And I'm terrible at remembering rules, and I'm finding that a lot of these rules, because I'm familiar with them, they're sinking in. And it says straight at the front of the rule book, you already know how to play this game. Basically, we're not going to explain what a D8 is, what a D4 is, whatever. It gets right into it. There's another point in the rules, roughly about halfway through, where it goes to sort of start explaining some of the rules for like falling and this and that, and the designer just jokingly says, well, I've put some of these rules in because everybody else has got them in their rule sets, and he gets through a couple of rules and then goes, nah, I'm not doing this anymore, work it out for yourselves. So, well, I was totally happy with that. I don't need to hear about all that stuff. Because if it's not there, I don't have to worry about getting it wrong. I'm happy just to make up my own rules. So, yep, that's rules light. That's how I like it. The other thing I like about the rule set is they've included a few little tools. There's random tables in there for generating missions, and it advocates the idea of a point crawl. Really, what you're looking for the structure of this game is to set yourself up a point crawl. It gives some simple guidance for doing that, and what it says is when you move from each point in your point crawl, you roll on the danger die. The danger die is where you invoke another mechanism in the game, which is tension. So quite often, this is the Stay Frosty aspect. You've got 6 levels of tension, and each level, you start at 0, and as the tension increases, you become more effective. But on the danger die, I think it's on a 6, when you roll a 6 on the danger die, tension explodes. And this is like everybody's pent up emotions. It's my interpretation once again, because it's not totally spelled out in fairness, but I think I got it right. When the tension explodes, everybody in the group makes a will check, and if you fail, you take the tension level, your tension number, times the character level. You take that in damage. It's like, kind of like psychological damage or whatever, or maybe something grievous happens, like somebody starts like firing a few rounds off or something, and there's shrapnel or something. I don't know, but there's damage. You work out why there's damage, and you can rationalise that however you like. But other things can happen when you roll on a danger die. So you maybe just increase the tension, or you pick up a clue, or there's an encounter, and a clue, and it just sort of like the danger die kind of is the mechanism that kind of drives the game on and ramps up this feeling of stress and fatigue, and maybe the squad starting to backbite, and this feeling of impending doom. And in our session, that was definitely something that was going on. I mean, I was sort of sometimes kind of forgetting it, but and then compensating by dropping it in here and there when I just sort of thought, play was quite tense, everybody seemed tense. I'd think, well, no, I'm going to roll the danger die and see if I can like ratchet ratchet this up a little bit more. So the danger die, the tension, all this was good. The other thing that I liked in this rule set is in the combat and the attack actions, there's other things that you can do in combat. It's not just about shooting and attacking. You can use each of the abilities, I noticed. So you've got various actions, so you can attack, or you can do like a battle of wills. So you can do like a willpower thing to cause disadvantage on your opponent. You like psych them out. What else is there? There's you can use your brains to kind of prepare. What did they call that now? I should have sat down with a rule set in front of me, I realise now. But basically, there's an action that you can take that incorporates your particular best asset. So you don't end up with that situation where a character feels totally hopeless in combat. So if you're quite a brainy character, you can spend a turn preparing so that at least on the next turn you've got a decent chance of doing something, rather than just getting off some sort of wild shot. So I thought that was good, and that was quite refreshing. So I think I've covered the main bases on the rules there, and I'm going to now talk a little bit about the session. So, having rambled on a little bit too much probably about the rules, the session itself, we had 4 players and a couple of, like a pilot and a co-pilot that were from the shuttle that brought the team down onto the research facility. I kicked off the session with in the thick of it, just described what players could see from this shuttle. They had no briefing, they'd not played the rules, we just rolled up characters. Right, you're in a shuttle, you're heading down to this Aquarius 1 research facility, a green ocean stretches to the horizon as far as the eye can see, and you can see the shining domes of the research facility ahead as the shuttle begins it initiates a automatic docking sequence. Then, my old chestnut trick, boom! I hit the table. Everybody leaps up a few inches out of their chairs. I said, now, a collision warning is sounding on the ship's computer. The shuttle pitches to the left and is now plummeting through the sky like a stone, dropping out of the sky. What do you do? The pilot is slumped at the controls, blah, blah, blah. So I started off with a bit of action, and basically we just got the medical officer. He jumped, he took the controls of the ship, realised whilst he could kind of steer it, he didn't really understand the systems on the ship for kind of making an emergency landing. The tech hacker guy came to his aid. The sniper spec ops bloke was on hyper vigilance, and there was an officer sort of shouting instructions on one thing and another. So everybody was straight into it. They managed to deploy some sort of chutes that brought the shuttle down, and they ditched in the sea about 100 yards away from the facility. At this point, I mentioned about if you was listening to this show on the A to Z of Monsters, that thing that I randomly rolled up on the show, that had this flying fish thing had got wedged into their engine, and they could see the remains of that through one of the windows in the shuttle. So that a little Easter egg for myself I put in the game. And then it was about just making a couple of skill rolls to suss out the situation. Asked them what they was going to do. They told me. Got a raft, hacked their way into the facility, and then they began to explore this multi-domed research station. Now, basically what I'd done was I came up with some random... I basically created, I think it was 10 different experimental plant monsters that were being fed on this nutritious water that this moon provided. So this research facility was basically looking into kind of potentially bio warfare or taking weird and wacky plants from across the universe and genetically modifying it and experimenting with it and turning it into sort of dangerous or productive creations that could then be rolled out, to interested parties. So it was a sort of a vaguely sinister operation going on. The characters didn't know any of this, however. They were just told that this research team, it was a largely automated setup, but there were 3 scientists, these research biologist folks, that were running the show, and they'd lost contact 6 months ago. A maintenance team had been sent 2 months previous. They had also lost contact with them. At this point, the powers that be were alerted to the situation and decided that it was time to call the Marines. Hence, the party arrived. And basically, the way I set this up, so if you imagine a donut, it was a round donut type facility. There was 12 different 12 points, if you imagine a clock, so going round a clock, 12 doors going off to separate domes, and the domes were linked with kind of a floating flexible walkway. And then in the centre there was a command centre. Every door had like CCTV and passcode security and stuff like that. So there was like loads of opportunities for doing a bit of hacking and sneaking around. I made sure to mention there was quite a few funny noises going on. Little did they know, most of it was to do with just systems that were still running and whatnot. They soon found the abandoned maintenance shuttle. There'd been signs of a struggle, so they investigated that. And, I won't bore you with the details, but basically the group went around exploring this facility. So the whole thing became like an exploration and investigation, unravelling what had gone on. Basically, there was one survivor, a female biologist, which I had 6 names, 3 female, 3 male, and I had a index card with a male NPC and a female NPC on the reversed. Both were slightly different, and what I wanted to do was on the night, so I was forced to improvise. On the night, I rolled on the name table, and if the female name came up, one of the female names came up, I'd play the female biologist, and if I rolled the male name, I played a male, and that had a sort of I just did that to put myself on edge, force me to improvise, and give me a little bit of that, like I'm always saying, a play to see what happens, because increasingly I'm finding that's what I enjoy. So I did that worked fine and everything, but my problem was, and I'm gonna cut to the chase now because I don't want to ramble on forever and a day. I didn't really get to combat. Crazy, what? So I had like 5 of these domes with dangerous plants in and everything. And they checked out a few of the like more poisonous and sort of hazardous ones. They found a dead scientist in the growing beds and one thing and another. But they didn't get to like the entangling dangerous vines. Because they found a scientist before that, because I did it randomly. So I had 5 areas for growing and 10 plants. So there was only ever going to be half of the stuff that I designed would show up on any one playthrough. And it would be randomly determined where they were. Now, in hindsight, I would have been better to have had a couple of perhaps fixed encounters so that I could sort of more or less guarantee a chance of getting to combat. Not because I think that a session necessarily has to go into combat, but I didn't get to engage with half of the mechanisms that are in this game. I mean, this game is supposed to be a little bit frantic, with you running out of ammo and then having to like chuck your gun to one side and like dash in with a combat knife and try stabbing the thing up, or like raiding the chemical cupboard for hazardous stuff and just like, you know, burning things. And I did include a big red button in this facility, which was a safety feature, which would basically fire out high pressure coolant into the grow domes and would kill everything in a grow dome with super low temperature, like frost attack. So in the event of emergency, scientists or whoever's running the facility would be able to go to this this alarm, hit this panic button type of thing, or they could lock off different zones, or basically freeze all the grow domes with the push of a button. And the characters found that, but that never got deployed. But yeah, so the other thing that was a little bit disappointing for me was because I had some younger players. I've noticed that playing this type of sci-fi genre was perhaps a little bit technologically advanced, and some of the language was a little bit beyond the understanding of my youngest son and my daughter, 8 and 11, yeah. So I would probably have to rethink that, especially as my youngest, he was playing a special ops kind of guy. He was a sniper, and he blew a big hole in the base at one point, but he didn't get to do a whole lot of actually bringing his prowess to the fore. So whilst I was spotlighting everybody, I was quite happy how I moved that around. They didn't totally get a chance to really engage their characters, so that could have been better. But all in all, I was pretty happy how it went, other than that big glaring issue there. On a more positive note, what I do think worked out particularly well was at the start of the session, I knew it was going to be a one-shot. I got 3 hours, 7 till 10. I told everybody, this 3 hour slot is your window on this mission. At 10 o'clock, your chance of evac from this mission ends. And if you're still planet side, then your characters will be taking their chances. They will be in a survival situation. They could be lost. Who knows what will happen. But if you can get the mission and get back to your ship within the 3 hours, everything should be fine. That will largely be regarded as a successful mission. So that worked out really well, because then when we got into the sort of last 10 minutes of the game, quarter of an hour, there was a little bit of a panic, because I used their risk computers to remind them that they were running short of time. And at this point they discovered that there was no communications functioning on the station, and they needed to get back to their shuttle, if it was still there, in order to communicate with their mothership. So that was another little extra panicky moment at the end that worked pretty well, and they were evacuated. So, thanks for listening, folks. That is the first of my session reports, I believe. And boy, do they drag on a bit. I will have to give this some thought and perhaps be a little bit more organised, and not try and do a semi-review of a game at the same time as trying to do a session report. I'm aware that this has gone on for a while, so thank you, listeners, for your patience. Anybody that's still listening, thanks for the call-ins, and I'll catch you later. Take it easy. I'll be off to the Hideous Giant for a few jars, I reckon. And that, as they say, is a wrap. Big thanks goes out to you, the listener, for taking a bit of time out of your day to listen to Old Spike Pit. Take care, and I'll catch you later.